Football doesn't get bigger than this. Sports in general don't get much bigger. It's estimated that 5 billion people will be watching the 22nd FIFA World Cup in 2022. The host nation always puts on a show as they have the attention of the world for 4 weeks. But the World Cup this year is different. It's had attention since it won the bid way back in 2010, and not for the right reasons. There are many dark secrets surrounding the Qatar World Cup, and we're going to discuss 5 of them. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for all 5, as I promise you, you will be shocked. Without a doubt, one of the most contentious points about Qatar hosting the World Cup is the human rights of the workers hired to build the infrastructure, or lack of human rights. Qatar still use the kafala system, which requires all migrant workers to have an in-country sponsor, which is usually their employer. Their sponsor is responsible for their visa and legal status. The issue with it is, it sets up the employee for exploitation. Employers may take away their passports and abuse their workers with little chance of repercussions. Holding them hostage on low wages and forcing them to work long hours in dangerous conditions sounds a little bit like modern day slavery. In 2021, The Guardian reported that more than 6,500 migrant workers have died in Qatar since they won the bid to host a World Cup. The actual figure is likely to be much higher, as migrants from the Philippines and Kenya are not included. Whilst these deaths are not specifically tied to the World Cup, a very significant portion of these migrant workers were only in Qatar to help build the infrastructure. Therefore, it kind of is. The Qatar government rarely even investigated these deaths, attributing most of them to heart attacks or dying of natural causes. There is also the suspicious case of Marc Bennet.
He was handcuffed and blindfolded and then put in a car and taken to a detention centre.
And what do you know about what happened at the detention centre?
He was subjected to mental and physical torture.
He was headhunted by Discover Qatar to boost tourism for the 2022 World Cup. Then Mr. Bennet decided to change company to a Saudi-owned rival. He was subsequently taken blindfolded and handcuffed to a state security detention centre, where he was stripped naked, blasted with high-pressure hoses, slammed against walls, and subjected to sleep deprivation techniques while held for 3 weeks. 10 weeks later, he was found hung in his hotel room. The death was ruled a suicide, but a British coroner found no specific evidence of suicidal intent. Also, the night before, Marc was on a video call with his family where he was laughing and joking. Whilst we may never know the truth, there is clearly something suspicious going on there. There have been attempts from Qatar to improve conditions, such as in August 2020, they announced a new monthly minimum wage of 1,000 riyals, up from 750. For reference, 1,000 riyals is $275 a month. When you think these workers are probably doing 6 12-hour days a week, that monthly minimum wage works out at 95 cents per hour. It's hard to look at some of the new stadiums in awe when you realise how they were built. As I'm sure you're aware, if you're watching this video, the World Cup isn't taking place in the usual time of summer. It's having to take place in the winter due to the extreme heat in Qatar. Even in the winter, it's going to be harder for players to recover between games, and doctors have said it will be near impossible for them to totally acclimatise. Apparently, the stadiums will harness the power of the sun to cool both players and fans inside the stadium, so that's one positive, I suppose. Being in the winter is going to cause havoc on an already busy winter schedule for domestic leagues. This issue could have been avoided if, it was taking place in a country that could have hosted in the summer. At the time when Qatar won the bid for the World Cup, they was ranked 113 in the world and had never qualified for it. In fact, they will be the smallest country to ever host it. So as you can imagine, a lot of infrastructure is needed to even be able to host it. We're talking hotels, roads, a metro system, an airport, hospitality centres, shopping malls and more. So much in fact that it's estimated they will spend $220 billion, which is 60 times the $3.5 billion South Africa spent in 2010. As I just mentioned, some of this will go on building roads, a lot of roads. In 2014, Qatar had about 2,500 kilometres of highway and planned to have 8,500 by 2020, an increase of more than 3 times in the whole country's highways in just 6 years. And then there's the stadiums. Only one stadium, the Khalifa International Stadium, was pre-existing and fully equipped before Qatar won the bid. The 7 other stadiums, starting at a capacity of 40,000 all the way up to 80,000, are a huge contributor to the $220 billion cost of hosting the World Cup. Oh, and they had to reduce the number of pledged stadiums from 12 to 8 as they couldn't stretch the budget. Homosexuality in Qatar is illegal. Offenders can face fines and up to 7 years imprisonment, and there's rumours it's punishable by death. Whilst Qatar have assured LGBT+ couples that they will not face arrest while holding hands or kissing in public, and they are complying with FIFA's request to allow rainbow flags in the stadium, it's still a statement from FIFA that holding such anti-inclusive views in the 21st century isn't met with hostility, but it's actually being rewarded with hosting one of the world's most prestigious sporting events. Now, after hearing all that, I'm sure you're not thinking Qatar is the perfect host for the 2022 World Cup. So, why did they win the bid? One explanation is corruption, of which there are many allegations. In 2012, Michael Garcia was appointed to investigate ethical breaches at FIFA. After 2 years, he completed his finding, dubbed the Garcia Reports. However, instead of publishing them, FIFA published a summary which didn't include any wrongdoing from any FIFA official, which caused Michael Garcia to resign. In 2015, the FBI found 11 FIFA officials guilty of corruption and money laundering. Whilst it wasn't directly related to the World Cup in Qatar, several of these members were part of the committee that awarded them the hosting rights, and were found to have suspiciously close relationships with the government. So make of that what you will. In 2019, former UEFA president Michel Platini was arrested for questioning regarding the decision to award Qatar the World Cup. Honestly, the things I've just mentioned is literally the tip of the iceberg when it comes to corruption surrounding this World Cup. I've linked some videos and resources in the description if you want to read more about the corruption claims. The Wall Street Journal described awarding Qatar the World Cup as the scandal that brought FIFA to its knees. Considering the human rights issues, the incredible heat, the lack of infrastructure, the lack of footballing history, and the allegations of corruption, you have to ask yourself, why was Qatar awarded the highest honour in football?